This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Well, friends, it was a busy day for Canada's Prime Minister. Within the last 24 hours, he sits down with Canada's premiers, the First Ministers meeting, and a common theme emerges as the First Ministers speak with Mark Carney about building Canada. A trend develops as premiers in BC and Manitoba and Ontario and Newfoundland call out Alberta separatists along with the Prime Minister. More particularly, Mark Carney says that he expects the Americans, led by President Donald Trump, to respect Canadian sovereignty. We're going to get into it today. We're going to talk about that Canada-China trade deal. We're even going to talk about fighter jet procurement. That's been, pardon the pun, flying under the radar for a while under this show. The last individual in the know that we talked to about that was retired Lieutenant Colonel Laurie Hahn. You remember him, a longtime Conservative MP. He talked to us about the Gripen and the F-35. Well, our guest this morning in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West has solid knowledge on the file, a longtime elected official, diplomat, and now with the Canada West Foundation himself, Gary Marr has seen it all, and he'll be joining us in just a moment. Today also happens to be the 10th anniversary of Pride Tape. Proudly dreamed up and developed in our home city of Edmonton, Pride Tape has become a force in hockey circles, a symbol of inclusion. And of course, how could we ignore the incredible success and impact of Crave's now all-time biggest series, Heated Rivalry? Remember how I talked about Mark Carney's big day, his packed schedule? Well, he wrapped up his evening after meeting with Canada's premiers on the red carpet at a media gala in Ottawa, where he posed for photos and chatted with one of the stars of Heated Rivalry. The NHL commissioner is on the record talking about it. You're going to hear from a National Hockey League all-star who's been talking about it. And of course, we'll look into our live chat today, powered by Park Power, to get your take on the developing theme. It's been a mission for some for many, many years in front of many different communities. Inclusion in hockey. That'll be the feature. That'll be what we're talking about on our Real Talk Roundtable today. Let's get the show started. This episode of Real Talk is presented by our friends at Hansen Distillery. You know, over the past number of months, we've been talking to you about some of the offerings from Hansen Distillery and what they've been so proud to put out. That includes the first ever 7-year aged whiskey produced in Edmonton. No one's ever done it before. Hansen Distillery is first. That's their Northern Eyes whiskey. There's just 400 bottles available, and this collector's edition will sell out. If you're a whiskey lover, you owe it to yourself to check this out. Now, Hansen's not just whiskey. They're also known for their small batch vodka, gin, moonshine, their unique liqueurs like this oat milk, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free cream liqueur we're showing you right now at hansendistillery.com. Everything they do is crafted right here with local Alberta ingredients, and every bottle tells the true story of passion, heritage, and hands-on craftsmanship. You can visit their distillery just north of Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West on 174th Street, 111th Ave in Alberta's capital. Of course, you can keep your eye out for their latest creations wherever you buy fine Alberta spirits, and you can always visit their website at hansendistillery.com. Hansen is proudly local, always original, and made right here. Joining us in our Real Talk studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton, Gary Marr, who served as a member of Alberta's Legislative Assembly and MLA for more than 14 years and held a number of different cabinet portfolios, including the Ministry of Health. Gary was appointed in 2007 as the official representative for Alberta in Washington, D.C., working in the Canadian Embassy with the official title of Minister Counselor of the Province of Alberta to the United States. Gary served as the province of Alberta's representative in Asia, leading strategic outreach from his post in Hong Kong, overseeing Alberta's 5 other offices in Beijing, Shanghai, Tokyo, Seoul, and Taiwan. He is now president and CEO of the Canada West Foundation. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Chancellor of MacEwan University. It's nice to have you here on the show. Thanks for making time for us.
Thanks for having me on board here, Ryan. I appreciate it.
The Ministry of Health. Don't worry, I won't get too into healthcare right now. I know that we're here to talk about a million things, but when it comes to cabinet postings, I mean, you were community development, education. There's another huge one. Minister of the Environment, International Intergovernmental Relations, which is a big one. These are some high pressure situations that I suppose these postings allowed you to get a really clear understanding of finding balance between budget and public service. It has to have, of course, shaped your perspective on what governments are doing and on policy through the remainder of your career.
Well, let me say this. I've attended First Ministers meetings where they've talked about healthcare, and I would say this: Canadians would be pretty impressed with what they hear from their premiers, how knowledgeable they are on the issues. Many of the issues across Canada are the same when it comes to healthcare, an aging population, a diminishing opportunity to have human resources applied to it. But the premiers of Canada are really, really knowledgeable, and they speak very eloquently about healthcare. And we don't all have the same solutions, but they're all trying to do the same thing. I wish that Canadians had the chance to see what I've seen in this regard. Healthcare policy issues are not easy. A Rubik's Cube is easy. It's a three-dimensional puzzle. Healthcare is like a 20-dimensional Rubik's Cube, much more difficult to solve, but an important one nonetheless.
Yeah, no kidding. I want to set the table for everything we're going to talk about. You were on assignment yesterday, speaking in front of a pretty impressive group. Who were you talking to, and what were you talking about?
So the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, the Honourable Rick McIver, hosted all of the presiding officers from across Canada. So these are the clerks and the speakers of the legislative assemblies for, in this case, 14 jurisdictions across Canada. And they talked about their common issues, and they talked about how it is that speakers and presiding officers can really set the tone and are the guardians of democracy. And that may sound lofty, but it's real. I think that their jobs are more than symbolic. And frankly, if everybody walks away from the day after a debate in the legislature and everybody's moderately unhappy on both sides, you've probably done your job well. But it's a hard job, and they share best practices with each other. So it's not unlike FPT, federal, provincial, territorial meetings of ministers of education or ministers of health, ministers of intergovernmental affairs, and so on. It was actually really quite enlightening to hear from all of the speakers, from Yukon Territory and Nunavut to folks that came from Nova Scotia, Atlantic Canada, Quebec, British Columbia.
We've seen some interesting trends. Obviously, this report leaked. We don't know exactly who contributed to it, but numbers that showed that wait times in Alberta ERs had led to some pretty precarious circumstances. Tragically, at least over a 2-year period, 6 people dying waiting for care, and more than 30 what they described as critical near misses, where people had sort of barely survived despite being left in triage hallways, laying on stretchers outside of rooms and that sort of a thing. One of the common themes that we saw on YouTube comments and emails into the show was people, real talkers, checking out the show from outside of Alberta, saying we're experiencing very similar situations or the same thing in our province. In other words, this is not a province. This is not an exclusive scenario for Alberta. Did you pick up on that same theme talking to the speakers? Are there sort of some shared woes, so to speak?
Definitely, and this happens all the time. And again, it doesn't matter what the political stripe of the speaker is. Of course, all speakers are members of the elected of the legislative assemblies of their respective jurisdictions, and so they get involved in issues beyond being speaker as well. And those debates are very similar across the country. When we're talking about healthcare, and it bespeaks of the need for Canadians, from a policy point of view, to really look at some of the solutions that are outside of Canada. What's being done in other places? You look at the integration of artificial intelligence, telehealth. You look at the opportunities that are being created in other jurisdictions with, privately delivered, publicly delivered services. It's just, from a policy point of view, it doesn't make sense that if an Albertan needs to get their knee done, they can fly to Vancouver to get it done, and the surgeon that they might have doing their service might be an Alberta orthopod.
Who's also traveled to BC to do the work.
Right. And so it's not clear to me why it would make any sense to anybody that you would have an Alberta patient and an Alberta physician both flying to Vancouver in order to get a private surgery done. That doesn't make any sense at all.
For people that might not know, and I mean, I rattled through your CV there to give people a sense of what files you've worked on, who you've been talking to, what offices you've overseen. So people have a clear understanding. What is the Canada West Foundation's mandate? What do you do there as president and CEO along with that team?
We are focused on economic policies that can benefit Western Canada. And it was started, over 50 years ago by people like the Honourable James Richardson, who was a Trudeau-era minister who felt that Western Canada didn't get the same kind of attention that they did in Eastern Canada, and so was very fundamental. The Richardson family continues to support us today, as do the Mannix family and Arthur Child's Foundation. It's fantastic.
It's the who's who right there.
It's a who's who, yeah.
Pretty remarkable stuff, this trend developing with that First Minister's meeting yesterday, talk about Alberta's separation, kind of forefront, and it's understandable why. Different premiers will see that having implications on their provinces. It obviously would have. The movement itself, let alone were it to happen, would impact the entire nation. And I wanted to get your take, generally speaking, on it, and maybe your response to what a few of the premiers had to say. But you rarely see this, like many different premiers talking about an issue in the backyard of one of their colleagues. Typically, they'll defer to that premier, but that's not happening here. Mark Carney, in particular, calling out, I think it's fair to say, we'll play the clip, the United States, saying that he expects to see Canada's sovereignty respected. This in response to an Alberta lawyer by the name of Jeff Rath claiming, including on this show, that a delegation that he's been a part of has been meeting with officials with the U.S. State Department, saying negotiating terms of an Alberta sovereignty scenario. Well, here's what the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, had to say about it.
I fully associate myself with Premier Smith's comments just then. I expect the U.S. administration to respect Canadian sovereignty. I'm always clear in my conversation with President Trump to that effect, and then move on to what we can do together. Thank you.
Canada has never seen a relationship with the United States like this one, where our elected prime minister is being referred to as a governor, where there's talk about a 51st state, where the most powerful individual on planet Earth, the president of the United States, is posting social media shots of the Canadian map, also along with Greenland, Iceland, Venezuela, with the stars and stripes over it. I mean, you've worked in D.C. How are you wrapping your mind around what you're seeing, and what's the appropriate tone for Canada to take, in particular the Prime Minister, in dealing with this White House?
Well, I agree with both the Prime Minister and Premier Smith when they say that the United States should respect our sovereignty. But I think it's also important to note that we shouldn't always be taking the bait. Greenland is be a really good example. I mean, the President of the United States said, I want to have Greenland. I want to take over Greenland. And what happened? Well, did he take over Greenland? No. The reality is that everything that the President of the United States wants from Greenland, he can already have. He wants military bases there. He has military bases there. He wants access to critical minerals there. He can get leases to have critical mineral mining in Greenland. So there was nothing in what the President talked about that went beyond what he could already get. And so then he meets with Mark Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, and he walks away and says, we have this great framework of an agreement, whatever that means. And the next day, retired generals are on MSNBC, and they're saying, well, there's no new agreement. It's the same framework that NATO's been working on for the last decade. So, but the president has the need to say that he did it. You got to give him the bumper sticker, bumper sticker that says, I made a great deal. And whether it's real or whether it's fictional, that's what satisfies his ego and his need to feel like he's the great negotiator, he's the great businessman who makes deals.
BC's Premier David Eby didn't mince words in speaking basically about this delegation, so to speak. I hesitate to even use the word, to be honest with you, because it's unappointed, it's unelected, it's unofficial, this group of Albertans that are down there purporting to speak for Albertans. But here's what David Eby had to say, using that T word you've been hearing flare up here on this show.
I'd like to just take and pause a moment. I read an article last night in the Financial Times about a group of people from Alberta, I won't describe them as Albertans, who went to the White House seeking the assistance of the United States to break up our country. Now, I understand the desire to hold a referendum to talk about the issues you want to talk about in Canada. We got free speech, that's important. But to go to a foreign country and to ask for assistance in breaking up Canada, there's an old-fashioned word for that, and that word is treason. It is completely inappropriate to seek to weaken Canada, to seek to go and ask for assistance to break up this country from a foreign power. And with respect, a president who has not been particularly respectful of Canada's sovereignty. I'm going to be raising that issue at this table. I think that while we can respect the right of any Canadian to express themselves, to vote in a referendum, I think we need to draw the line at people seeking the assistance of foreign countries to break up this beautiful land of ours that our forefathers, our foremothers, our parents, our grandparents fought for. There is a line. And especially at this time when all Canadians have to pull together, I think we can speak as one voice about conduct like that.
You don't hear premiers invoke the word treason very often. You don't hear Canadian premiers use the word forefathers either very often. That felt like a nod to the U.S. for what it's worth. But what do you make of that? I mean, you spent a lot of time in the Alberta legislature, and I know that there have always been Albertans that have felt that the province would be better off outside of Canada. I mean, for a lot of people, this has been a long-held belief. But in your estimation, is it more of an issue now? Is it more prominent? Is the movement stronger now than it was 20 years ago or maybe even 30 years ago? And is what Premier Eby saying appropriate, bang on?
You know, I've often disagreed with Premier Eby on a number of policy issues. However, I'd say on this one, I'd agree with him. I think he was very measured and clearly emotional about it, but still measured in his commentary before he used the T word. And I understand exactly why he used it. It's a strong language to use, but and I'd say this about parts of the country breaking up. And first of all, I'd say that Canada is better together. And that would be true of Quebec. That would be true of Alberta as well. And I understand the sentiments that some people in Western Canada think that, we get a raw deal as it relates to our role in Confederation. I understand that too. I remind people that, there was a Western Canada Concept Party back in the early 1980s that was talking about 4 Western provinces separating from Canada. That wouldn't have made any sense. But there is a probative lesson in what David Cameron went through. He thought that he could control the Brexit forces, and he couldn't. Once he started the fire, he couldn't contain it, couldn't control it, because it no longer becomes about the economic case and the strength in numbers and the economic modeling that you can do that show that we are better together. Instead, it becomes about emotion. And David Cameron lost Brexit because of the emotions attached to it. I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse in the UK these days as the reality of what they've done has come to set in.
Gary Marr's our guest in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Mr. G. Sucha in our live chat says, I remember hearing Gary say after President Trump was first elected that he's a pro wrestler. This is pro wrestling. What did you say that? What's that all about?
So in 2016, I was on CBC television live, and I was asked to handicap the 16 candidates who were seeking the Republican nomination for president. And so I went through the list of people like John Kasich and Senator Lindsey Graham, and I got to Donald Trump, and I said, look, I know more about pro wrestling than the average guy. I used to, do legal work with the British Bulldogs, and it's not well known, but Vince McMahon of WWF fame, or now WEF,
WWE, yeah.
WWE.
Yeah.
He was the president of Stampede Wrestling in Calgary in the early 1980s. And
legendary, Stu Hart.
Stu Hart. And this was his inspiration for WWF, later WWE. So Mr. Trump, I had opined, he'd participated in something called the Battle of the Billionaires. And in the Battle of the Billionaires, he and McMahon signed an agreement that they both got to be represented by a gladiator in the ring, and the loser had to have his head shaved by the winner. So I'd invite your listeners to go to YouTube and look up Battle of the Billionaires. And what you'll see is that Trump's fighter is losing badly. And you'll see Vince McMahon prancing around the outside of the ring, and he is getting ready to shave Donald J. Trump's head. Unexpectedly, Trump bull rushes him like he's Lawrence Taylor, knocks him to the floor, and gives him the business. And then he raises his hands triumphantly. And then, this is the clip here. And in the end, what happens is that a guy comes out of the stands and he rips off his shirt. And it's Stone Cold Steve Austin. And under his shirt, he's got a black and white referee's jersey. So then he helps Trump's fighter take down McMahon's fighter, and he counts him out. 1, 2, 3, you're out. And so Trump wins. And so Trump ends up shaving McMahon's head. So my point was this. Donald Trump has learned every lesson from pro wrestling and applied it to politics in a way that we had never seen before. In pro wrestling, you have to have a narrative. You're a hero or a heel. And if you're a hero, this is what it sounds like. America's not great, but it's not your fault. It's the fault of Mexicans and the Chinese and immigrants. And if you are the hero, you have chants that you whip up your audience with. They're usually 2 or 3 words, and it sounds like lock her up, build a wall, make America great. And if you're the hero, you demean your opponents. You give them nicknames, and it sounds like Little Marco and Crooked Hillary and Lying Ted.
Pocahontas.
And it goes on and on. And so if you are the hero, your fans don't care if you lie or cheat. It matters not, because you're my guy, and I'll support you because you stand up for me. And that, I think, is a way of thinking about Donald Trump and how he thinks and how he deals with public policy issues. And his bluster over Greenland, his bluster over Canada are just an example of what you would do in pro wrestling. And so he has applied it to politics in a way that we've never seen before.
I didn't think we'd be talking about Stone Cold Steve Austin today. You, as mentioned, were posted in Hong Kong for 5 years. You oversaw Alberta's office in Beijing, Shanghai, along with Tokyo, Seoul, and Taiwan. The president was, for lack of a better word, I think fairly triggered, it's safe to say, by Canada's trade deal with China. Now, he described it as free trade with China, which I'm sure you'll clarify, and suggested that this could result in a 100% tariff of all Canadian goods and services crossing the border into the United States. It's leading many Canadians to question the comments that Mark Carney made at Davos at the World Economic Forum, suggesting that Carney owed Trump a phone call. There were reports, we talked about it yesterday with Erica Barudis, about a phone call between Canada's Prime Minister and the President of the United States, where the President claims Mark Carney walked back some of the Davos comments. The China deal, Scott Moe seemed pretty happy about it on behalf of producers in Saskatchewan. What's your analysis? What's your take on it?
So I think that the Prime Minister went to China with these 2 objectives in mind. He wanted to increase economic opportunities for Canada. That's one objective. The second objective was not to place anything at risk in terms of national security. I think he accomplished that. I mean, I applaud that deal. I think it was the right thing to do. The number of EVs that are being permitted under this deal at 6.1% is 49,000. That's roughly the same number as were the case in 2023 before the Trudeau/Biden 100% EV tariffs. To put that in perspective, 49,000 vehicles is a very small percentage of the 1.8 million vehicles that Canadians bought last year, less than 3%. And, I think that there may be an opportunity to reverse China's playbook. So in the past, when Bombardier has wanted to have access to the Chinese market, they partnered up with China High-Speed Rail. And the deal was this, is that in a joint venture, the Chinese partner has to have 51% of the joint venture, and Bombardier had to turn over intellectual property as part of that. Well, that helped build the Chinese the Chinese high-speed rail industry, and it's been a huge success for them. So their EVs are way ahead of anything that we've seen here in North America, frankly. And but the reverse might be that if BYD wants to sell cars in Canada, then they're going to have a 51% Canadian partner, and there has to be intellectual property transfer from BYD to a Canadian partner here in Canada. That would be an example of what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So I think that this may be a sea change in how we think about China and how we think about the United States. And I think many people who applauded the Prime Minister's commentary in Davos may be looking at that as well to see if that is successful, because you've got Donald Trump going to China in March. You've had Keir Starmer wanting to increase their trade with China. Macron from France, President Lee from South Korea. Everybody is going to China to look at how we can change the nature of our trade relationships on an international stage.
It's been suggested by senior members of Trump's administration that Canada. I mean, the implication is, I'll paraphrase, is that Canada's screwing itself ahead of CUSMA renegotiations, or amid CUSMA renegotiations, to be dealing with China, sending the wrong message. Canada could be hurting itself. It's leading some Canadians, including some members of the show. They're writing as much into the show to talk at ryanjesperson.com, saying that this is the most important trade relationship with Canada is the United States, and we're jeopardizing these negotiations by dealing with China. Do you share that perspective, or do you think that China, as also a global economic superpower, needs to be a market that Canada explores more without apology to the United States? Where do you land on it?
Well, look, let's take energy, for example. I mean, the United States is the greatest energy buyer or user in the world, about 20 million barrels a day. But China's second at about 16 million barrels of oil a day, and they're frankly a much larger importer. They don't have domestic oil. And so does that represent an opportunity for Canada? The answer is yes. But you can't decouple from either of these economies. It's hard to see prosperity for Canada without somehow engaging with the largest economies in the world, which would include the United States, China, and India. And you can run away from the United States, but you'll always run into the United States. The same is true with China. So it's a tight wire a balancing act that we need to move forward in a way that doesn't jeopardize our relationship with the United States. 75% of our exports from Canada go there. But I think it's notable that 38 U.S. states describe Canada as their largest export destination. And so the issue will be if President Trump wants to put 100% tariffs on goods, it would destroy supply chains. It would result in a political pain in the United States, and there would be great economic pain here in Canada. So the question is, can the president outlast the political pain that he'll feel as a result of this? And can Canada outlast the economic pain associated with 100% tariffs going on U.S. exports or Canadian exports to the United States?
I want to talk to you about Arctic sovereignty, Canada's defense capabilities, NORAD, NATO, the F-35 procurement resurfaced in national conversation and news coverage this week to bring the audience up to speed. Basically, Canada's committed, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but to buy 16 of the American-built F-35 fighter jets, and the Prime Minister will be deciding whether or not Canada purchases an additional 72. The numbers always seem really small to me. We're talking about a dozen, 72. I think a lot of Canadians would be surprised at and I say this respectfully, but the meager fleet when we're talking about Canada's Air Force. The Americans have bristled at the suggestion that Canada may instead invest in that Gripen fighter jet built by Saab, the Swedish automaker. And I think peak Hoekstra, the U.S. ambassador to Canada, Ambassador Hoekstra, probably raised more than a few eyebrows this week, just a few days ago, where he suggested that Canada would face or could face dire consequences if we elected to go with those Gripen jets instead, said that the joint U.S.-Canadian NORAD agreement would have to be changed, that the Gripen would not be interchangeable or interoperable with the U.S.-operated F-35s, and suggested that the Americans would start flying their F-35s, U.S. Air Force F-35s, into Canadian airspace to deal with any perceived threats. Flying into American jets into Canadian airspace under the guise of American defense would cause anyone to bristle that's been paying attention to Venezuela or Greenland or any sort of a threat toward Canadian sovereignty. Where are you landing on this? What do you think the right decision is for Canada when it comes to investing in these fighter jets? The purchase is long overdue. We've heard that from Lieutenant Colonel retired Hahn for sure and others. But what's your take on it?
Well, Ambassador Hoekstra last week was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and he went to visit the Air Force Base at Luke Air Force Base, which is just outside of Phoenix. So to put our purchase in context, there are 155 F-35s just on that one base in Arizona. And I think that, buying military material is not like buying furniture at IKEA. You have to have a clear understanding of what your operational requirements are. And if it's for fighter jets, 1-to-1, the F-35 completely outperforms the Gripen. That's not to say the Gripen is a bad aircraft. However, I'd point out that the power plant, the engines in the Gripen, are made in the United States. The avionics for the Gripen are made in the United States. Should Canada decide to have Gripens instead of the F-35, I could foresee that the President of the United States would refuse to sign an export permit to allow jet engines and avionics from the United States to go into Canada to manufacture the Gripen jet in Ontario. So that places you in a pretty tough spot. On the interoperability piece, let's say that as a part of a NORAD mission, you've got a Gripen in the Canadian Air Force, and you have to land at Elmdorf Air Force Base in Alaska. Nobody there will know how to fuel the plane, let alone maintain it or fix it if it requires fixing. And so interoperability means that you need to be able to communicate with your allies. The F-35 and the Gripen don't have the ability to communicate with one another. So for a whole host of reasons, I could see Canada getting the Gripen for certain purposes, but not on our joint NATO mission. And surveillance of the Arctic, which is important, will ultimately rely upon drones, which is why Lockheed Martin has set up an office in Calgary. They've got a skunk works there, and skunk works is where they do the lab for all the newest, coolest, latest stuff that they don't talk about.
Sure. And
it's being done in Calgary, and Lockheed Martin is working on drones at their skunk works in Calgary.
I was reading an article the other day talking about how Canadian forces personnel are working on they're participating in exercises that would train them or at least hone their training in the case of, and I mean, it feels wild to even talk like this, but American military invasion of Canada's north and what that would look like. And the comments in this article, I think it was in the National Post, they were talking about how Canada doesn't have the military capabilities to fight off the Americans. And so it would look a little bit more like the type of warfare that we've seen through history with underdogs using like surprise attacks and drones and almost like a guerrilla warfare type approach. It's hard to wrap your mind around it, and even those interviewed said, let's all acknowledge this is highly unlikely. This is not something that we expect to happen. This is not the most likely scenario. They were also pointing out that were Canada to come under attack from the United States, again, feels wild to say out loud, that it wouldn't just be Canada, that we would have military support from the UK and the Germans and the French, and of course people would better understand what NATO and the NATO alliance is all about. I mean, How are you wrapping your mind around the fact that conversations like this, coverage like this is in mainstream news, that Canadian Forces personnel are reportedly training for this type of thing, that this is maybe not the most likely circumstance, but it's possible. This is not something we would have even considered like 10 years ago or even 5 years ago.
Well, two things come to mind. One is that military commanders in the United States were asked to prepare plans for the invasion of Greenland. I don't doubt for a moment that they, in fact, created those plans. Now, did they ever expect to execute the plans? Probably not. Highly unlikely. Not only that, military commanders are required to, uphold certain principles about when they can turn down an order from the commander-in-chief. Now, on the nature of warfare, look at what's happening in Ukraine. You've got weapons being developed in Ukraine that are being developed in real time.
Yeah.
You've got frontline commanders talking to folks, that are building these drones and saying, I need a drone to be able to do this, that, or the other thing. And it's turned around in a matter of weeks, not months or years. And so the nature of warfare, kinetic warfare, is changing. And so I don't doubt that Canadian commanders have been prepared for this. Is it likely? I think it's highly unlikely that they have to execute those plans. But know that, large aircraft carrier are not the future of kinetic warfare.
Huh. Crazy to think about it, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, it's just crazy. All credit, by the way, it was not the National Post. It was Robert Fife and Gavin John with an exclusive in the Globe and Mail, if you want to read it. Military models Canadian response to hypothetical American invasion. I knew we would be out of time before we even got started. There's a million things to talk about. Didn't talk to you about Conservative Convention. Didn't talk to you about... We were reminiscing on the show just the other day when we announced your appearance about the 2011 PC leadership race. And, of course, you were a big name in that and the evolving dynamics around conservatism in Alberta. We'll have to get you back on again sometime soon. Thanks for making time for us. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan. I look forward to the future ones.
You got it, Gary. You can check out more about what Gary Marr and his team are doing at Canada West Foundation by visiting cwf.ca. Gary Marr in the spotlight in our feature interview presented by our friends at Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. Hey, friends, it is Stollery No Bounds Week, and we are so proud to support this campaign. This is a big, bold fundraising campaign for this children's hospital that is just integral to healthcare in Western Canada. It is No Bounds Week across the Metro Edmonton region and right here on Real Talk, and we invite you to check this out.
Ground control to Major Tom.
We took our first steps, brave steps, bold steps, in 2001, accomplishing the extraordinary. Today, we lead in pediatric organ transplants and many other specializations. Now imagine the possibilities in a space of our own. Help us launch the new Stollery Children's Hospital with no bounds to what we'll accomplish next.
Check out StolleryNoBounds.com for more on that. Hey, I want to make sure that California Closets is on your radar, friends. We're so proud to partner with this Canadian-owned company, and I want to let you know, I think this is significant. I think this is a relevant detail. We were California Closets customers years, literally years, before they joined us in an official sponsorship role here on the show. We know the value of investing in California Closets. For us, it was a walk-in closet in our primary bedroom. We love it. And an entertainment center in our family room where the family gathers. This is where we spend a lot of quality time, and we wanted that to be an area of the home that was well organized, that looked great, and of course that could, to be honest with you, take a bit of a beating. We have a 10-year-old. We have a 3-year-old. 2 little boys who love to play mini sticks and everything else. These installations look just as good today as they did 7-8 years ago when they were installed. And that's why when I talk about California Closets, I speak with enthusiasm. Now, for those of you that think, well, I could never afford a California Closet, number one, we are not loaded. And number two, California Closets can work with any space and any budget. You can check them out online. Request a free consultation today by visiting CaliforniaClosets.ca. Our friends at Solar by Kuby are reminding you that winter's actually a perfect time of year to start thinking about your green energy goals. The team at Kuby, of course, has the experts that know the ins and outs of government incentives and budgeting and engineering and design. There's some details to sort out before the panels go up on the roof of your home or your office building or your barn, which is why winter's a perfect time to get the ball rolling. You can request a free consultation today at kuby.ca. That's KUBY.ca. And don't forget, first responders. There's a special incentive for you if you're a search and rescue personnel, a member of the Canadian military, police officer, firefighter, EMT, you name it, any first responder, 911 operator. Their Powering Those Who Protect program takes 5% off the top right away when you commit to a solar system with Kuby Renewable Energy. Again, that's kuby.ca, KUBY.ca. Our friends at Athabasca University, year-round, are opening their arms to new students. This isn't sort of an everybody flood the zone in September back-to-school type thing. One of the AU advantages is world-class accredited online degrees and courses designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. That's why more than 500,000 program and course alumni from over 100 countries have found a perfect fit at Athabasca University. So whether it's a course you're using to level up your skills or your understanding of a dynamic job market, maybe it's that MBA you've always dreamed of pursuing, you can open up your options with the online offerings at Athabasca University. Take a couple minutes today to learn more at athabascau.ca. And for those of you watching the markets, those of you tasked with ensuring that your business or your family is well set up for success over decades to come, we recommend a conversation with North Road Investment Counsel. They build customized passive portfolios that are designed to capture index returns, but with a strong focus on tax management and matching your values and preferences. And so that means you can exclude companies you're connected to as an executive. You can avoid industries like guns or tobacco in your portfolio. You can design your holdings for greater tax efficiency. For families and institutions with around $2 million or more to invest, North Road creates fully customized factor portfolios in Canada and the U.S., all within a globally diversified investment strategy. But if you're at an earlier stage of building your wealth, the team at North Road can also work with you on an hourly basis. You'll have a professional review your current investment strategy. They'll take a look at your insurance needs and develop a customized financial plan. That's just one of the many things that makes North Road Investment Counsel different. Be like Real Talker Michael, who sent us an email the other day after he sat down with Marshall and Carrie at the team. Michael let us know that he just was encouraged by what he heard. They let him know that with Michael managing his own retirement funds to this point, he was doing great in some areas and, well, he had a couple blind spots. Great benefit in meeting with the team at North Road Investment Counsel. You can check them out online at northroadic.com. I see here Belias, thanks for the $10 into the YouTube Super Chat. Belias says, wait a second, wait. Are we okay with America communicating with our fighter jets? That sounds like spying to me. Weren't we worried just last week about China doing it with EVs? And isn't it strange, Blyce? You allude to this now. It's why I'm having a bit of a difficult time wrapping my mind around the situation here. We've always seen the Americans as our greatest allies, as our best friends, as our most important trading partners. Of course, we would want our fighter jets able to communicate with each other as we ensure the security of our shared border and our shared assets and our shared interests. And all of a sudden now, it all sort of seems to be called into question. And this isn't some sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy type thing. This is the average person just watching the news and trying to pull what they can away from it. Grounding ourselves back to common sense. But man, oh man, you can let us know how you're wrapping your mind around this. I'm still having a tough time with it. I was talking it out with my cousin Philip down in California. You guys remember Philip? He joined us on our 4th of July episode to talk about what was happening down there. Remember that? The ICE agents that had been rabble-rousing down in Southern California. This is before Minnesota. This is before we knew what was going to happen there. And I commiserate with my cousin. Our dads are brothers. We do have shared interests, from familial interests all the way through to a shared love and admiration for each other's country of origin. We love our visits to California to visit family. They love coming back to Alberta to see us, and everything just feels so wild now. We'll take your thoughts. Maybe you think about it over the weekend, chew on it. Let us know where your head's at to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Well, Fridays, we love to introduce a real talk roundtable that'll get you thinking, or that will challenge where you're at with something, or sometimes that will inspire you. And that's the theme in this episode as we commemorate, as we celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Pride Tape. And we're thrilled to welcome to the Real Talk studio in Mercer Warehouse the co-founders of Pride Tape, Senator Kristopher Wells and Jeff McLean. To both of you, welcome to the studio. Congratulations on 10 years.
Yeah, always great to be back and great to be here with a fun message.
Yeah, you both of you, I mean, most people are going to be listening to this on the podcast, so let me describe. Senator, you've got a jersey on. Why don't you describe for us what the jersey is, the logo on the front, what we're seeing here?
Yeah, this is one of our Pride Tape jerseys. You know, when the NHL banned the Pride jerseys, we figured, well, we'll make our own. And we did a limited edition run, sold them online, and in fact, are good friends with the Oilers. Connor has signed one of them. We think it's the only Pride jersey in the world that he's signed. So we're trying to still figure out what to do with that. Should we give it to the Hockey Hall of Fame, or should we put it up in my office in Ottawa, or what would be the appropriate honor of that special jersey?
Well, it'd be pretty cool in the Hall of Fame. It'd be pretty sweet in your office. It would probably fetch a pretty penny up for auction as well.
Yeah, I think we've ruled that one out. Despite the need for a new car, but
yeah, that's right. Jeff, it's good to have you in studio as well. You're holding, both of you are holding. You have hockey sticks with you that are autographed. Who signed that one there that you're holding?
This Pride Tape hockey stick is signed by Luke Prokop of the Condors in the AHL, and Luke is an Edmontonian as well. So this is a true made in Edmonton story.
Luke's not just any average, ordinary hockey player, though.
He is not. He's a fantastic person. He's also the first signed NHL out player.
That's pretty huge
It is.
in a sport that has not had it. And I mean, we don't just have to talk about hockey here. Professional sports in general, it is generally speaking very rare for a professional athlete to be out. That was certainly the case 10 years ago or 11 years ago before Pride Tape started. What have the two of you seen over the decade since? Have you seen recognizable change? We're going to talk about the Heated Rivalry TV series in just a minute. That's huge. How do you ignore that? But what's the last decade been like through your eyes, Chris?
Yeah, well, I think we've seen progress and change, in fact, that have allowed, a show like Heated Rivalry to be possible, right? I think it's so successful because it hits a need. We started Pride Tape 10 years ago out of a research question that I had was, why are young gay male and bisexual boys dropping out of organized team sports at younger ages than their cisgender heterosexual peers? We knew there was a culture problem, and a lot of that culture stems from the locker room and the leadership that is exclusive rather than inclusive, and around this sort of hyper masculinity and misogyny that has been an ongoing problem in hockey, right? We're not ignoring the scandals and the problems we keep hearing about and the abuse that has happened. And so we wanted to try to find a positive way to signal that you belong here, that there are people who will support you. And that's what led to Jeff's creative brainchild in creating Pride Tape. How do you take a really serious, complex issue and make it simple enough for people to immediately understand and want to be part of?
Take us into the creative process behind it. I mean, it's relatively simple in what it is. It's a roll of tape that, as it is unrolled or applied to a hockey stick, it creates a pride flag. But at the same time, as simple as the design may be, it was hugely innovative, and it was a really big deal. I mean, from inception, it was winning design awards. It was grabbing people's attention. You're the one who dreamed it up. Take us through the journey.
Well, 10 years ago, working with my colleagues at Calder Bateman Communications, we had worked with Chris previously on a number of important projects. The precursor to that was nohomophobes.com, which was an idea created to scrape homophobic tweets in real time off Twitter. And what we noticed when we were testing that site, that homophobia was spiking during major sporting events. So we knew we had to do something in and around sports to address this issue. And we thought, hey, we're in Edmonton, we're Canadian, we love hockey, we love the Oilers. We have some friends and connections with the Oilers. So we chose hockey also because, again, it was the sport with no out player at that time 10 years ago. So started coming up with some ideas. We had 3. 2 were pretty contentious. The third was a little bit friendlier, which was Pride Tape.
What were the other 2?
The other 2 were going at players and the leagues and really challenging them to as why they weren't supporting. But we wanted to do something that was certainly friendlier, more inclusive, because that's obviously the nature of the idea. So originally it was actually going to be probably a 1 to 3 month campaign with a photo image of somebody taping up their stick and then going in there with Photoshop and putting 6 colors on the tape. And then I was driving to work one day and I thought, well, I've seen repeat patterns on hockey tape, like the Batman logo or Hockey Canada logo. And I thought, well, if you can repeat graphics, what if you can actually repeat colors? And so then we started for about a month. We had a bunch of white hockey tape and some magic markers, and we started trying to and we tried to figure out the right pattern. And we discovered working with manufacturers that over 36 inches is when it repeats. So we had 6 colors, and so 6 inches per, and we started doing that to see if we could actually get on one side, get a perfect pattern. I didn't sleep though for a couple of months because love goalies. Best friend was an Oiler goalie for years, and then realized it's not going to work out perfectly on a goalie stick. So I was really worried about that. And then when it launched, all the photos that the NHL showed us some pictures of the teams incorporating it. It was all goalie pictures, Henrik Lundqvist and others. And I'm like, damn. But everybody loved the haphazardness of the patterns that ended up on the stick. So it was really cool. But yeah, it started out with white tape and magic markers and perhaps a billboard until we figured out that we could actually make it.
I know probably a big part of both of your work is hammering away at stereotypes, and that's something I think that most folks in their everyday life would like to hammer away at stereotypes. So pardon me for invoking a stereotype, but people may assume that an initiative like Pride Tape may first be rolled out by a National Hockey League club in like Southern California or New York, or you get what people wouldn't expect a Northern Alberta-based, a conservative hotbed-based NHL club to be the first. How significant was it when the Edmonton Oilers became the first National Hockey League club to wrap Pride Tape in an NHL warm-up?
Well, it was huge. And we like to say, we're not sure Pride Tape could have actually started anywhere else but Edmonton. Because, we have this amazing community where people get behind a good idea, right? We're a big city, but we're still a small town in terms of the kind of connections and the relationships and the innovation that happens here. And so I remember, when the Oilers agreed to launch this, thanks to our good friend Andrew Ferentz, who became a real ambassador and gave us good piece of advice. He said, you're going to make this product. First, you need to make it professional because NHL players are not going to use an inferior product. And you got to realize that not everybody's going to use it, right? Because, hockey players are superstitious and around their tape and around their routines. And so, that was never our measure of success, was that, everyone was going to use it. We also wanted only the people to use it who believe it, right? And stand up for the message. And so then when we went to the Oilers, they said, yeah, we want to be the first, and chose that their fan appreciation game, right, at the old Rexall as the way to debut it. And we thought success would be, one player coming out and using the tape. Like, Andrew as the captain went in the room and he told the guys what it's about, and he threw the tape in the, in the middle and says, if you want to use it, and, please do. Doesn't force anybody to use it, but leads by example. And then, when we watched them coming out of the tunnel, and every single player, right, had tape on their stick, including at that time, I think it was Yakupov, who in Russia could have been arrested for doing that, right? And it was very significant. And then we got, tweets and messages from fans in the crowd who said, with tears in their eyes, never thought they would see their team, support them and their community. It was just so powerful and profound. I'll never forget, that experience, and helping us then lead by example to the rest of the NHL and the rest of the world.
Pongi is in our live chat, powered by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider at parkpower.ca. Pongi says, why did the NHL ban Pride Tape or ban Pride jerseys? I think of, and several of them are Russians, and maybe there's a dynamic at play there. I remember Ivan Provorov with the Philadelphia Flyers said that he wouldn't wear the Pride jersey. Alex Ovechkin has refused to wear Pride jerseys or Pride tape. But it's not just limited to Russian players. The Stahl brothers have exercised their right to refuse. James Reimer, the goaltender, has said that he won't wear a Pride jersey. How has that landed with the two of you? Is that something you take personally? Do you respect an individual's right to refuse based on personal conscience? How does that land with you?
Yeah, I think the NHL took the wrong approach and created controversy really where there was none, because 97% or more of NHL players had no problem wearing the jersey.
I mentioned like 5 names. There's like 700 players.
Yeah, so we actually focused on the negative rather than the positive. Like, what kind of approval rating of 97% do you get anywhere, right? But that's the world of social media, right? You ostracize, you alienate, and you target. And I understand people, for all kinds of reasons, may not feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable for their family's safety back home in a country that arrests people because of being an LGBTQ person, or religious differences. Hey, that's fine. Everybody should be able to exercise their own beliefs, but we shouldn't be able to prevent people from also sharing their support. And I think that's why they quickly backed off the ban of Pride Tape, which was originally part of the jersey ban. It was because of the negative reaction from around the world. And I can tell you from our experience, the NHL doesn't reverse courses on many of its decisions ever. And this was one of them. And I think over 10 years, one of the things we really learned is that Pride Tape has become one of the most visible and powerful symbols in the NHL, probably next to the Stanley Cup as being the most recognizable. And that really says something itself.
Yeah, we knew the ban was coming. We got a phone call from our friends inside the NHL to let us know what was happening. And the first day of the ban, we got notes from 5 different teams in the NHL saying, please send us tape. And we had to say, well, there's a ban. And they're saying, well, yeah, no, absolutely send the tape. And we're going to use it for other things. I mean, it may not be warm-ups, but we'll use it in kids' clinics. We're going to use it for these other programs, community programs we have. And same time, I received a text message from Travis Dermott, who was then with the Arizona Coyotes, and I had been sending him tape when he was with Toronto and Vancouver. So we built up a relationship prior, and I said, well, Travis, there's a ban. And he says, no, send it. I'm using it anyway when we get home from St. Louis, and we'll use it at our first home game in Arizona. So we had a really strong feeling from inside the league and all around the world that because of the support, the ban wasn't going to last long. It lasted 10 days, thanks to all the supporters that believe in the message.
Let me ask you guys just about sort of the anecdotal evidence around this and like what you've heard from people, young athletes, maybe gay or lesbian athletes or what have you, about like, a lot of people may think, someone like me, okay, like cis, straight, white male, whatever, I see, I see Pride Tape out or we've taped, we've been proud. Our Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic coming up tomorrow, by the way, in St. Albert. Pride Tape has been a sponsor of that. We've been thrilled to integrate it. And you see it all the time when the players show up and they get their welcome bags with their jersey. There's a roll of Pride Tape there. And like, I would say, I don't know, 25, 30, 50%, it's hard to know. The first thing they do is they retape their stick with Pride Tape, and they don't think twice about it. And if people don't, that's fine too. But for me as a straight guy, I'll look at that and I'll go, oh, that's cool. That's great. I'm happy to support it. I'm happy to support the inclusive cause. But for like a gay or lesbian or queer athlete, seeing Andrew Ference or Connor McDavid or someone rip around the ice with Pride Tape, like, the impact of that, what have athletes or what have sports fans told you?
Oh, so many stories, and that's really been the gift of being able to do this is people sharing their stories about the impact of Pride Tape or what it's meant to them, personally. And I think for me, the most powerful story I heard was as a young person said, no, Pride Tape didn't just change my life; it saved my life. Because I was depressed. I left hockey because I didn't think there was a space and a place for me. And it was my teammates who invited me back, and they wrapped their sticks in Pride Tape, showing me that there was this acceptance, this place, this belief in me. I always think about, we're losing the next Connor McDavid potentially because a young, hockey player was told that it's not safe for me to be myself and to be accepted in this game, right? That, selfishly, I want everybody to be able to pursue their talent, not, their identity as being a barrier. And ultimately, it's about, you want the game that you love to love you back.
What have you heard?
I've heard lots, and we hear it every single day. I monitor and create the content for the Instagram feed for Pride Tape. So,
there's still momentum here. This is still a thing.
I know we're going to get to heated rivalry, but thanks to the show, it's jumped considerably. I was showing Chris just outside a message I received last night by a hockey dad in the U.S. and sent me another picture of his daughter Emmy with tape, her new hockey card shot done this week, and then I had 4 other photos from her. The first one being 10 years ago, and just how little she was, and now 10 years later, still supporting. But there's many stories that stand out for me. One in particular at the Pride Night with the Oilers, when one of the people working at the game found out that we were with Pride Tape or had a connection to Pride Tape. She started talking about her relationship with her dad, and that when she came out, that relationship was fractured. And because of the tape, it started a conversation, and it actually helped rebuild the relationship she had with her father. And she credited Pride Tape with that. And it's those, we call them the quiet moments, those conversations that we have with people at events like the Pride Cups or the Pride Nights with the NHL teams, and just meeting the individuals that refer to the difference it's made in their lives.
Let's talk about heated rivalry. This is... feels weird to put it this way. I don't think I've ever described a TV series like this before, but for both gay and straight viewers, this has been a show that has resonated in a huge way. We just learned yesterday. We're actually going to hear from Canada's Prime Minister in just a second on this. This is now Crave's all-time biggest production, which is saying something. The stat, actually, that jumped out at me most significantly was that 30% of people that have watched Heated Rivalry have rewatched episodes. Myself as a content creator, if I hear that people are going back and rewatching Real Talk episodes, we know we're doing something really right. But it's bringing the story of inclusion. Well, actually, I'm gonna let you put it in your. I'm not going to tell you what I think it's doing. Let me ask you for your response to the phenomenal success of the story of 2 hockey stars, Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov. Bound by ambition, rivalry, and a magnetic pull that neither of them fully understands.
Yeah, I think, from the 2S LGBT community, right? It's a story about our lives. Every single person can relate to those experiences about, the stress of having to hide who you are, wondering, is it safe? Having to, I lived it myself, coming out in the 90s here in Alberta without any human rights protections. I'd go to the grocery store on the weekend with my partner. He'd put his hand on my hand on the shopping cart, and I have to pull away because I knew if some student saw me, I wouldn't have a job come Monday. So I had to deny my relationship to keep my job, right? And it eats away at you, right? This constant invalidation, this constant worry about your safety, and it leads to that kind of lifelong trauma. So, watching Heated Rivalry was part joy, part pride, part catharsis, to know that, this is possible. And, then you add sort of the hyper masculine heteronormative sporting environment in the game of hockey. And it's the same way, why Heated Rivalry was so successful, the same way that Pride Tape has been so successful, because, it's a message that doesn't really need a lot of explanation, because it's just about love, acceptance, and inclusion, right? Fundamental human values.
One of the things that I've observed in conversation around it, these are like comments on Instagram posts, and I mean, there's going to be some like detracting posts. There's going to be some hate mongers. There's going to be some homophobes for sure. But I've seen like a recurring, genuine curiosity around the number of gay athletes in pro sports, and in particular in hockey. Pride Tape, I would imagine, has prompted a similar conversation, but I think Heated Rivalry has taken it to a whole other level.
Well, one of the things I've seen just recently because of the success of the show and the Game Changers book series is the spotlight being put on all the inclusive queer hockey organizations, not only in North America, but beyond. And these are all friends of ours that we've had relationships with Pride Tape over the 10 years. And there was a small handful before we existed, but now there are teams almost in every major market. And they're getting to tell their stories, which is important. So, originally Toronto, Chicago, Boston, and a few others before we started. And now we have friends who started up, Joey and Steven in Seattle, who started because of Pride Tape, Seattle Pride Hockey Organization, and also the Harbour Lights and Southern Lights in Australia. Our friend Stuart, again, started up and attributed their start to Pride Tape. So it's nice with the show that they're getting a lot of airtime to tell their stories, because those are the true, authentic stories that are bringing more people to the sport, and they're getting huge uplift in signups. And their organizations are growing tremendously, which is great.
I want to get to a comment from Canada's Prime Minister in just a moment. I'll dip into our live chat here. Ashley Grab says, I've watched Heated Rivalry 4 or 5 times, and says, and I've read the books, and I'm so proud of this Canadian-made show. The Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, actually appeared on a red carpet like literally just hours ago with Hudson Williams, who plays Shane Hollander on the show. And I'll call him Shane. That's how we know him, as the character. So Shane presents the Prime Minister with this the Canadian fleece. This is the Canadian Olympic fleece as depicted in the show. It turns out, and I saw some of the buzz on the photos, people are saying this is a real fleece. This is a real fleece from the set, and people were clarifying because so many folks have been making their own fleeces. I've seen like Hollander Rosenov t-shirts. I mean, it's just wild. And then here he is, Mark Carney. So this is a media gala in Ottawa. This is the Prime Minister of Canada speaking about Heated Rivalry.
Heated Rivalry is now Crave's. It's interesting, Crave. Heated Rivalry. Heated Rivalry is now Crave's most watched original series. In the first week after its debut, viewership grew 400%. The average episode has already been rewatched by 1/3 of its viewers. Blueberry smoothie sales are skyrocketing across the world. Yeah.
What does it mean to you to hear I mean, you're a Canadian senator. The fact you're talking about this is cool, but the Prime Minister of Canada attending, I mean, look at the photo even, like posing with this actor in a way that is, just unapologetic, massive smiles, supporting the show. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's funny. I had a ticket to that last night and,
just
couldn't get there. And so I had major FOMO going on, and I sort of text back to say, that is the original fleece. That fleece, I want that fleece that the Prime Minister is wearing, number one, or it should be in the National Archive. We've got to protect the fleece now, right? Like this is a part of Canadiana, that fleece there. But, it's exciting. I think the Prime Minister missed an opportunity there when he was talking about the blueberry smoothies to talk up Booster Juice, right? Another great Canadian
that's true.
Business entrepreneurs taking over the world by storm. But he's a funny guy, right? And he's a hockey guy. And so it's great to be able to talk about these issues and get the message out there. What I love most is he talking about how these are Canadian values, right? That this isn't anything strange in our country. And that's why this show is created here. That's why Pride Tape is created here. I always like to say, look around the world. What is Canada known for? Hockey and human rights. And what happens when we put them together? We get Pride Tape and we get amazing shows like this.
Incredible. The National Hockey League Commissioner, Gary Bettman, was asked about Heated Rivalry. And if he's telling the truth, by the way, I think this is pretty remarkable. But let's get to what Gary had to say about it first, and then we'll break it down. This is NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman.
We're well aware of Heated Rivalry. In terms of embracing it, I think it's a wonderful story. The content, particularly for young people, may be a little spicy. So you have to balance that out in terms of how you embrace it.
Have you watched it? Are you
Yes.
Hollander or Rosenhut?
I've watched all 6 episodes. I binged it in one night. I thought the storyline was very compelling and a lot of fun because, I could see where they were, picking at things that we had done in the past, whether or not it was being in Sochi or whether the All-Star game in Tampa. It was very well done.
So that's the commissioner of the National Hockey League who says he binged watched all 6 episodes back to back to back. Now, the cynic in me wondered if he was doing it to see if there was any copyright infringements on the NHL. But still, this is the commissioner of one of the 4 major sports in North America.
Well, yeah. How could you not watch it, right? It's such a phenomenon, and you need to know your brand, know your product, and so I'm sure the hockey players are watching it. I just warn people that it might not be something you want to watch on the plane, right? It's particularly the first 2 episodes.
I was surprised at how graphic it is. Some of
you were surprised. I was surprised.
Well, you and I have known each other for a long time, so let me talk how we really talk to each other.
Yeah.
I was talking to a buddy yesterday, happens to be straight. And he was like, I learned a lot by watching it. He's like, I had no idea. It's funny. I'm
like, all the secrets are being given away. Right?
Secrets are being given away. It's true. But what does it mean to you to see, this is not, there's sort of 2 angles to really successful campaigns. And Jeff, I'm certainly not going to lecture you on how to roll out effective campaigns, because that's what you do. But a lot of it is grassroots, right? Organic grassroots. And then a lot of it is really grown or amplified with support from the top, so to speak, or from the power brokers, and you see that here.
Yeah, we're actually still learning a lot as we go forward. But with any great campaign, successful campaign, you got to create something your audience can own. And that's the beauty of Pride Tape. It's not even a company. It's not even a product anymore. It's a conversation. And when you mention the Prime Minister, I also want to give some shout outs to some great Canadian artists. Pride Tape has extended beyond hockey, beyond sports, to the music industry. So our good friends at the Beaches reached out when they were traveling across Canada from Saskatoon coming to Edmonton and got a hold of us and said, hey, can we get some tape? And Leandra with the band wrapped her mic stand at the Beaumont Music Festival. And as we were watching that show in Beaumont, she invited us down and she told the audience, what do you think of my cool new mic stand, by my friends at Pride Tape? And the crowd went crazy. And other bands like our good friend Max, lead singer with the Arkells.
Nice.
If you notice their concerts, they have Pride Tape on the undersides of their guitars and on other instruments. And we got to meet with them at the sound check. And they have been supporters for a long time now. Biff Naked as well, and Tara Sloan from Joy Drop. So the music industry, specifically the Canadian music industry, have been integral into our success. So again, it's a product that you can own, and you are the message. So we say the strength of Pride Tape is really, it's on the people, it's owned by the people that choose to use it. And that's really where the strength comes. So they own it, the people that have the courage to use it.
What's the psychological impact of someone we love Biff Naked. Biff was on the show a few months ago. What a beauty. Just incredible. But for someone to see Pride Tape on Biff Naked's guitar, or to see Pride Tape on Connor McDavid's stick, or to see Pride Tape on the mic stand for the Beaches, what's the psychological impact on audience members or on fans, many of whom may be, and I'll invoke the word, hostile? What does it do? What does the tape do?
Well, the visibility is everything. And we have said since the very beginning, it's a way for people to apply it to a stick or a mic stand and tell people that they matter and that we love them without even having to use words.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. Back to heated rivalry, Charlie McAvoy, U.S. Olympian, blue liner for the Boston Bruins. If he wasn't playing for Boston, I'd be able to admit he's one of my favorite players in the NHL right now. Kind of one of those rough and tumble, blow you up at the blue line type guys. And he was asked about heated rivalry and the impact that it's having on discussions in the locker room. And here's what Charlie McAvoy had to say.
We saw the stick that you used in the warm-ups, that heated rivalry show that everybody's watching. Just wondering, from your perspective, what is the degree of acceptance right now for the LGBTQ community within the sport?
I mean, I think it's growing, and I think the league's done great things. I think, here within our room, we've tried to do things as well, to echo that message and to make everybody feel safe and comfortable within the game. It's very important. I think that, I haven't seen it, but from what I've heard of that show, that it's been growing the game a lot, and in support of that community. So that stuff's all awesome. It's awesome for hockey. It's awesome for, just for everybody. So, I'm happy that tonight that we won on this night, and, hopefully a lot of people feel the support of the Bruins.
Is it easier to just have everybody comfortable than it maybe would have been 10 years ago? In other words, is there progress?
I feel like I see it in here, most definitely, and I think you see it in the game too, with initiatives like this. And, I've heard so much, support from people within those communities that it means a lot to them. So, it's the least that we can do to show our support and show that, we're all on the same team.
Pretty cool stuff.
It's great. It's awesome that more fans are coming to the Boy Aquarium, right?
The Boy Aquarium!
To check things out, right? And that's what we need to do. You have to grow the game. You've got to reach out to new audiences. Look, hockey for a long time has been a very privileged, white sport. And we see it in the players. And, we've made progress, but we still have a lot more work to do, right? Like the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. We still don't have an out NHL player currently, or even in the past. Think about the thousands of NHL alumni and that haven't had the comfortability of one of them to come out. This conversation's been ongoing for many, many years. And, we hope that, Luke Prokop will come forward and will get in that NHL game and build a career, right? But, the conversation, and I think that's why in Heated Rivalry, that episode of The Kiss was so powerful and so monumental, right? Because it broke a barrier, and that barrier is still there. So we need to turn the fiction into fact.
Yeah, we want to show highlights from the show, by the way, but we'll get flagged for copyright. But there is, and I don't know do we issue a spoiler alert here for folks that maybe haven't seen it, but there is an extremely powerful scene. So spoiler alert, everyone, you've been warned, but there is a very powerful scene where a senior or a veteran star player in the league wins the championship. He's wearing the C's, the captain of his team, and all of the wags, right? The wives and the girlfriends, the families are on the ice. But it's either his boyfriend or his husband. I think it's his boyfriend. Is in the stands, and he calls him down, and he brings him out, and his boyfriend can't believe it, and brings him onto the ice. And
I think you just spoiled it, but
I think I did. Well, but we issued the spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Johnny's showing this still.
You're good.
But it was just this incredible moment. And so let me tell you about the conversation that we had in our household. My wife and I watched this series through 6 straight nights, an hour a night, and she goes, wow, can you imagine if that happened in the National Hockey League? And I want you to know, we have 15 years of friendship, you and me. Call me to the carpet if you think, here's my straight perspective on it. But as an allied perspective, I say the reason why I don't think that would ever happen in real life in the NHL is because the moment of the kiss or the moment of a player coming out would overshadow the moment of the team winning the Stanley Cup. And what do you know, the next episode, the player in the show says that exact same thing. Not regretfully, mind you, but he acknowledges it. Could you ever see something like that happening in real life?
Well, it is fantasy, right? We know,
of course.
We know often the spouses don't come down to the ice, and that's in the locker room afterwards. But absolutely, you could see it happen in a celebration. In the Stanley Cup parade afterwards, or right. There's so many possibilities, but I think it was so powerful of a moment because it was like a glass ceiling had been broken,
yes,
right, and shattered to thousands of pieces. All that pain, that trauma, that emotion was just released in the kiss at the highest pinnacle of one's career. You had the choice between authenticity or denial, and he chose authenticity. Hey, that's why we're all going to the cottage, folks, right?
Yeah.
You see it. It was this catharsis, right? And every little kid who had to deny who they were along the way, right, to gain acceptance, right? That just showed you there was hope and possibility for a different story.
In our live chat powered by Park Power, JJ Needs a Nap, by the way, says, oh, that's what WAGS stands for. Wives and Girlfriends. Says, well, son of a gun, you learn something new every single day. But I love this comment here. Where was it? I think it was from Shirley, who just said, what an incredible conversation to be having to wrap up the week. She says, what an uplifting episode of Real Talk as we go into the weekend. Good, caring people doing good, caring things. Love without words. That from Shirley. Oftentimes, as we wrap our roundtables, we'd love to sort of issue a call to action to give people something to think about or something to do. Jeff, on the 10-year anniversary of Pride Tape, amid the incredible success of Heated Rivalry, what's something you think the audience should walk with this weekend, or take away, or think about, or maybe communicate to loved ones?
Well, I'm currently working on a 10th anniversary presentation to take to companies and organizations just to get a chance to tell our story. And one thing that stands out for me is there's a quote. I had a phone conversation with John Lee Olsen, who's a professional goaltender in the Danish league. This was a few years ago. And John told me he's an out player in that pro league. And he said, I need to have the courage to tell my story in the hopes that it will give people the chance to tell theirs. And I think whether it's Pride Tape or Heated Rivalry, all of this conversation is to really give people the courage to tell their story, and they will inspire someone else. And I think that's what we've seen, and that's what we see on social media daily from folks all around the world, and I think that's really important, is just trying to give people the courage to tell their story, because they will inspire someone else, and they will, as Chris said off the top, they will change lives, and in fact, there's instances where it's saved lives.
There's an interesting comment here from Ken K. By the way, I want to shout out a couple of our super chatters here. Ken K and Super Chat Ken, different individuals, by the way, have both kicked in $10. They say to fund purchases of Pride Tape, so which is pretty cool. So Real Talk will play. So I think that we're pretty well stocked, but we'll buy even more. We're happy to give those away, and everybody that receives them loves them. But Ken K just made a comment here, and I've not seen this show. I know that part of it, maybe not this episode, but part was filmed in Alberta's capital city. He says the episode of Last of Us with Nick Offerman as a gay man, he says, is probably the best episode of any TV show to come out in the past decade. I've not seen it. I don't know if you have.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll ask you to comment on it. And bigger picture, just when we talk about inclusion, and we talk about, I remember having this conversation with Jackie Ray Greening, who's a radio legend in Canada, and Claire Hanna, a good friend of ours, who's a correspondent. She covers the CFL and the NHL on TSN in Ottawa, about women's inclusion in broadcasting. There's many different angles of approach on here, but we talk about representation of visible minorities, of minority religious groups, what have you, of the LGBTQ2S+ community. How big is it, representation in pop culture, in media?
Yeah, well, visibility is everything, right? Being at the table means you have an opportunity not only to be visible, but make change. So oftentimes we're like, who aren't we seeing? What communities are not, represented? Whose voices are celebrated and whose voices are silenced? Because that silence sends a powerful message around, what we accept, what we value in our society. And so, that's why we say Pride Tape is so powerful, as we've learned, because you don't have to say any words when you wrap your stick, or you put it on your water bottle, or your jersey. There's so many creative ways people have used Pride Tape, from their wheelchairs to their walkers, right? It just says that I'm okay, I'm somebody you can have a conversation with, right? And the power is not in the tape, it's in the conversation that it engenders, because that's where the possibility for change happens, right? Getting to see the other person as a person, understanding our common humanity.
Do you think that if one, we're talking just hockey, we could talk about the NBA, we could talk about the NFL. Some NFL alum have come out, even a CFL alum. There's a transgender CFL.
Maven is amazing, right?
Incredible. And like I tried, I can't walk miles in those shoes and understand what it would be like to be in. Is there a more quote unquote macho sport? Football, hockey, rugby. There's sort of this macho culture, but like obviously, statistically, there are going to be LGBTQ2S+ athletes. You think if one pro hockey player came out more would follow suit? That whole "we're going to the cottage this summer" type idea.
Yeah, it's the dominoes, right? It can take that courage, and as we know, we remember the first. We remember Jackie Robinson, right, and the struggles and the support, and how a whole community came behind him to support because they knew the first was important, right? And so, the fact in all of those professional major team sports, currently we don't have one out athlete playing, right? And we've never had one in the NHL. It's only a matter of time, right? Because society is changing. It's people like Luke Krokop, when they're young, they came out when they were 10, 12, 15 because it was okay. They knew there was the support. And so they've never been in the closet in their whole lives, right? They just graduated with their peers where, this hasn't sort of been an issue. And that's what we're hopeful for. It's probably going to be easier for someone who's never been in the closet to be out and be visible than, for example, a star NHL player right now to come out, right? Because you're also rupturing an image, a perception that everybody's already had of you, and you've had to go along hiding who you are for so long, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, just wait till you retire," right? And then you can do it. And hockey's different because it's very much a team sport first, where we don't have the individuals to stand out, right? And it's why the hockey interviews are always so boring because it's like, oh yeah, we got to play harder as a team, and nobody wants to call anybody out individually or stand out like Connor McDavid's the best, right? It's always deflected to everybody else. That's what makes hockey such a brotherhood, but that is also what creates the insular kind of culture and the challenge. But I'm hopeful because you hear the NHL players like Charlie and others. We've heard Zach Hyman say this, and Connor and many other teams, that they would welcome and accept a player to come out in the locker room, and it wouldn't be a non kind of issue, but it still takes that courage to cross that line. And once you cross that line, you're never going back, right?
In the context of just inclusion in sport and the bigger picture conversation, what sort of a role or what sort of an impact has the PWHL had, the Professional Women's Hockey League? All I know is that what I'm seeing on TV is like packed arenas and competition. I think that the caliber of the competition is maybe surprising some people that were unfamiliar with the state of the women's game. And I see in the stands, and it's not just women and girls, but there are a lot of young girls and a lot of, sort of like teenage probably athletes that are looking, going, gosh, there's a whole new option for me now. There's something where I can dream big, whereas before the potential, unless you're an Olympian, really would have been capped.
Well, I'm really glad you brought up the women's game because we say it as often as we can on social. Pride Tape would not exist if it wasn't for the women's game. So one of the first meetings we had 10 years ago, when we were talking with You Can Play, is we went down to Calgary and we had a meeting. I was fortunate enough to get to meet some players with the Calgary Inferno at the time with the CWHL. That went on to be the friendship and partnership with the NWHL and all of their teams. And that's where we got to meet Harrison Brown and Rebecca Morris and Tara Hoffman and others. And then that just led naturally right into the PWHL. And even before they played their first game, they reached out to Pride Tape. We got a call from Brian Burke when he was leading that at the beginning and said, we want, and Jana Hefford as well. It was pretty cool when you get in your inboxes, there's a message from Jana Hefford.
She's a Hall of Famer.
You're like, pinch yourself, right? Yeah. So, and they said, please send us some tape for every team. And just to let you know that we want to not only allow the players to use these during Pride events, but they can use it for any games that they want. So now we've made some really great friendships with a lot of the players in the PWHL, and they've actually supported us at our Pride Cup events at the NHL All-Star Game in Toronto, here as well in Edmonton with our Pride Cups in the summer. So the players have been incredibly supportive, and we couldn't be more thrilled for the impact their game is having on all of their fans. It's so well deserved. Everybody was ready for it, and we're super proud to be just play a small part of it.
Of course, fun fact: Harrison Brown is in Heated Rivalry as one of the actors, and is transitioned and has been leading that conversation around trans inclusion. in sport. So it's a great story, right? It's so normalized in the professional women's hockey league. No one really needs to come out, right? And Pride Tape is just there all of the time. And that's the goal that we want to get to, where this isn't an extraordinary conversation. It's an ordinary, everyday conversation we're having around, the dinner table, we're in the locker room, in schools, out in the community, because that's when we know when real change will happen, when, we don't need to talk about this anymore. It doesn't matter what a person's identity is. It just matters that they're a good person.
The strength of this has really been the creativity of the fans since the very beginning. You mentioned the fleece, right? And what happened with Pride Tape is people started taking it and doing arts and crafts and actually putting it in the numbers of their favorite NHL player's jersey. Chris mentioned, they were putting it on walkers. They were putting it on axe handles and so many different things. But it's them sharing their creativity and support for this important message that has really given it its own life. Again, we make tape, you make it powerful. The reason why it's so strong is because of all the people on social media that believe in it and use it and actually do some pretty creative things with it.
What would we mark here officially? And it's like today, isn't it? The 10-year anniversary?
It is Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, we actually have a floating anniversary because we started, the Kickstarter back in December 10 years ago, but we are marking our actual 10th as February 3rd, which is the day that we actually reached our Kickstarter goal and we were able to actually produce the tape.
How much did you raise through that Kickstarter 10 years ago?
I think it was around between 60 and 70,000.
And the beauty of that, of course, the last donation, Kickstarter, for those don't know, it's all or nothing, right? If you don't make your goal, you get none of the money. And so we were down to the last few hours to see if we were going to actually make the goal to produce those first 10,000 rolls of tape. And the last donation that came to put us over the top, I get emotional just thinking about this, was from Brian Burke in honor of his son.
Oh, in honor of Brendan.
Who passed away.
Yes.
Brian wanted to be the one to make Pride Tape the reality.
Wow.
In his honor.
I didn't know that.
And also, a huge shout out to the Oilers who did use those 6 different colored rolls of tape. We actually had to go down and tape the sticks with them with 6 different colored rolls for their all-star skills competition, which I know is coming up again soon
here. It is this weekend.
Yeah, but so we went and did that, and they wanted to help put us over the top, and that's what that event did, because the day after that event, Pride Tape was on the cover of many newspapers, not only here in Edmonton, but around the world, including the Guardian newspaper in the UK the next day.
Incredible. I wanted to ask you on the 10-year anniversary, and we'll ask you both of this in closing. What would success, or let's say continued success, for Pride Tape look like if we looked ahead 10 years, or if you could write sort of the ending to the story, so to speak? If this was a movie script,
that there is no more Pride Tape. We said since the very beginning we created Pride Tape so that we don't need Pride Tape anymore. That there is no such thing as inclusive hockey or queer hockey organizations. It's just hockey, and everybody plays and everybody feels accepted together. That's been our mission since the beginning. We're trying to, like Sub Pop Records, we're trying to put ourselves out of business. But
what a reference! But I'm a big Seattle guy. Yeah, Sub Pop is a big deal.
Exactly, and just again that everybody feels like they can, the sport that they love so much loves them back. Those have been some of our goals since the beginning, and they have not changed. We believe, obviously, we'd like more tape on more sticks, because we feel that, again, as John Lee mentioned, if I tell my story, you'll maybe give you the courage to tell yours. So hopefully there's more storytelling in our future, and we're going to be here as long as we need to be. We received some phone calls from parents that have told us some pretty meaningful, deep stories about how their kids have run into some hate by their own teammates. But one hockey mom in particular got a hold of me a few years ago in the summer, and she said, "Just promise me one thing, Jeff." And I said, "What's that?" And she said, "Just don't ever stop what you're doing. It's important." So we keep doing what we're doing.
Amazing. Tony's kicked in 5 in the YouTube Super Chat, says, "I would love to see the day when a person can love whoever they want and no one will bat an eye." She says, love is love. Same question to you in closing, Senator. 10 years from now.
Pride Tape's never been a product. It's a movement, right? And it's something that everyone can be a part of. So 10 years from now, we hope to be looking back from a rocking chair thinking, a lot of good things happened. A lot of people's lives are changed. Hopefully, people had the support to be themselves in the game. And when a player comes out, it's not going to be a big deal because they were never in the closet to begin with. So, but we're in a world, right? We're in a province where things are moving backwards when it comes to LGBTQ inclusion. We're banning, trans athletes from sports. So, when we say to people, like, if you're going to use Pride Tape, we actually want you to mean it, stand up for it, right? Because we don't want somebody to see that stick taped or to see Pride Tape somewhere and then wondering, well, is it really safe for me? Right? Everyone deserves safety. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone deserves acceptance. And ultimately, everyone deserves love. And so, our message to all of those young people out there is, you're not alone. There is a community and a world waiting to accept you, right? It's just about taking the first step when it's safe to do so and finding those people who honor you and support you and respect you.
Beautifully said. That's Dr. Kristopher Wells, Canadian Senator, representing the province of Alberta. Jeff McLean, his colleague and co-founder of Pride Tape. You can learn more by visiting pridetape.com. It's where you can also purchase Pride Tape for your organization, your team, whatever the case may be. And you can learn more about the cause. Again, that's pridetape.com. And make sure you give them a follow on Instagram as well, at Pride Tape, where you can learn more. Our gratitude to these two celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Pride Tape. This conversation happens with the support of Real Talk partners like our friends at Friesen Brothers. Last year was a huge year for Friesen Brothers, celebrating 70 years in business, still family owned, just a remarkable success story in 16 different Alberta communities. I want to make sure that this weekend you're remembering that Friesen Brothers, the first day of every month, so that'll be Sunday, that's February 1st. Friesen Brothers knocks 15% off all grocery purchases of $75 or more. This is a fantastic way to put great food in your fridge, great food on your family's table, and keep more money in your pocket. Friesen Brothers also has an all-day family day brunch buffet coming up on the 16th of February. Of course, Family Day, a big deal, and they want to make sure that they usher that in. That'll be Monday, February 16th. You can find all the details at friesen.com. That's FRESON.com. You want to know another great cause worth your support, another great cause you can get behind? And listen, if you can laugh your way through fundraising through a comedy night, is there anything better than that? I don't think so. UCAN Youth Services is our charity of choice this year. And UCAN Youth Services is bringing back their comedy nights early to mid-March. You can check out ucan.ca for more, the 9th to the 11th, and then the 16th through the 18th. You can buy your tickets directly off the website. This is hosted at Rick Bronson's comic strip on Bourbon Street at West Edmonton Mall. It is a blast. Trust me, guys. I'm never going to send you somewhere that sucks. I'm never going to send you somewhere you're not going to have a great time. We're getting an entire table ourselves. We're going to be there one of those nights. We're going to have 8 people joining Carrie and myself. We're going to laugh through the evening. We're going to probably bid on some live auction items. We're going to do what we can to participate in the silent auction. They have a 50-50 going on as well. You can find out all the details at ucancomedy.com. I encourage you, make it a date night. Make it get your friends together. Those friends you haven't seen in a while. Maybe you have a crew that goes and checks out stand-up comedy once or twice a year. This is a perfect opportunity, again, at ucancomedy.com. And we also want to remind you that the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic goes this weekend. That's tomorrow morning if you're listening to this the day that we're doing it. Saturday, the 31st of January, out at Larry Alexiak Field in St. Albert. Starts at 9, runs through till about 4. Our friends at Apex Automation are going to have a brisket trailer out there, Johnny. They're bringing a big, huge grill on wheels. No. Brisket. Is there anything better? Our friends at DQ have the burgers. Molson is making sure that the beers are going to be ice cold. They'll be served up by our friends at Central Social Hall. Everything, every single cent we raise is going to be headed to Kids Sports St. Albert and Uncles and Aunts at Large. And that includes our silent auction. If you go to the show notes on podcast or on YouTube, I'm going to punch it in the live chat right now as well for Real Talkers that are checking this out live. We have 6 club seats, 4 together and 2 together, for this weekend's game, for Saturday's game, the Edmonton Oilers hosting the Minnesota Wild. And an optional Golden Bus transport to the game as well. From Central Social Hall St. Albert through to the game, you can place your bid today. The bid sits as we speak at $1,000. The tickets are worth about twice that. So I'm calling on you, Real Talkers, if you want to check out the Oilers versus the Wild, McDavid versus Kaprizov. You want to see Quinn Hughes wearing that new sweater, going toe-to-toe with Evan Bouchard, the battle of the blue liners. Place your bid today. It's at 32auctions.com. You can search for Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic 2026 or just go to the link directly in the show notes. Thanks in advance for bidding generously, all in support of a great cause.
Lots of great causes today. And the only reason I said, oh no, about the truck is because, Ryan, I've been eating right since January 1st, and now I feel like I'm just going to unload on the brisket.
I'm very proud of you. I don't know if I've been eating right or not. I'm not sure if I've been eating right or not.
Can we say well?
I have dialed back.
I've been eating well.
I've dialed back the
could mean many things.
Shortbread.
Yeah.
I have limited.
Christmas
I was averaging.
shortbread is out of control.
Well, I would say from Christmas. Now I'm going to say from the 23rd of December through to probably the 2nd of January, approximately. Sure. I was averaging like 2 butter tarts a day. And I'm now back down to my median of, probably 0 a week. I'll average that out over the rest of the year. But I knew that it was unsustainable, 2 butter tarts a day.
Great to see the guys from Pride Tape today. Wasn't
awesome. That cool?
Yeah.
Tony, by the way, is wondering. Let me clarify. She says the Golden Bus. She says, is that like a bougie upgrade from the Yellow Bus? Tony, I mean, we all love the Yellow Bus. The Yellow Bus has its role. The school bus, you'll have friends that'll rent the school bus to take you out to the bush party or take you out to wherever.
Yeah.
The Golden Bus, you can search for them on Instagram. These
not
guys,
a sexual thing.
No, it's not a sexual thing. Well, I don't know what's happened in the Golden Bus from time to time. They probably hose it down. But I will just say, they bought a city bus, like a legit city bus. I'll find it here. Yeah. And the entire outside is wrapped in sparkling gold. And there's a structural support in the middle, Tony. So there's like a pole in the middle of the bus, if you know what I mean. I think that's to make sure the roof doesn't collapse. I think that's why they have that big.
Yeah, right.
I think that's why they have the big pole in the middle of the bus. There's a DJ booth on the bus. It's going to be wild. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be incredible. I don't know look at my camera here. Looks like I'm in like 480p or something. It looks
it's kind of choppy.
Looks like I'm broadcasting through a potato right now, guys. Sorry, but the sound sounds great. But yeah, it's going to be an incredible evening. I can't come to the actual game, but I told you, and I'll remind our audience that will probably save Ryan some money because when Ryan says come out to the game, I'm like, will there be apps?
Will there be
drinks?
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'm the guy with his arms full of like potato, wings, everything. So
yeah, but
it's going to be an incredible day. And +3, I mean, it was freezing last year at the pond hockey tournament, which was. We never get we always get 2 ends of the spectrum. It might be a little I'd like it to be like -3, but +3 I'm going to
+3 is going to be amazing.
I'm just going to enjoy it tomorrow.
They're saying
it's going to be so incredible.
They're saying it may be the best ice we've ever seen.
Right?
At the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic.
Oh,
and
shout
it's
out
open
to the
spectators,
guys.
By the way.
Yeah,
we've got the city of St. Albert's helping us with the ice itself. And the ice clearing there is great. I mean, there's not a better pond hockey tournament going. That's a fact.
It's incredible.
You can stack ours up against anyone. Here we are. This is not. And I guess it's just a little free shout out to our friends at the Golden Bus. But for Tony and everybody else here, check this out. This is what we're talking about. This is it's like a retired city bus that has been transformed into basically a nightclub.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. The only thing that'll probably keep this thing on the rails is the fact that we've secured the Golden Bus from 6 to 7 p.m. So although we will have been celebrating since 9 in the morning. So it's going to be a good one. You won't want to miss it. The Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic.
Can't wait. Yeah. We're going to be bringing these rolls of Pride Tape we got on the table out to the Pond Hockey Classic.
Absolutely. It's cool. They left a bunch here, and we'll have a bunch out there. And it's been something that's been really neat to see people support through the years. I'm not surprised to see the level of engagement or connection to Heated Rivalry, to the show. And
I was
our
just
live
going
chat
to
here.
say
there are
that
a ton of people that have checked it out.
And I wasn't surprised that Jeff said I was going to bring up the question if I didn't hear it, but obviously they've seen a bump here. I mean, this is the first show where you're getting millions and millions of eyes on the community that, I feel needs to be boosted up. The idea that you said it yourself, there's 700 some odd hockey players, and that not one of them is gay or in the LGBTQ community. Like, so that means there's professional hockey players right now, I would argue, that are hiding their true selves because we've still got people who are not as accepting, right? I had a friend, very open-minded guy, very nice guy, very, I wouldn't think he has any qualms against anyone. And he was like, yeah, I watched Heated Rivalry with my wife. I'm like, yeah, man, I watched it too. What'd you think of it? He said, well, it was good, but, there's a lot of sex. It made me feel uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay, man. He's like, but you know what made me feel the most uncomfortable was the kiss on the ice. And I said, why? And he's like, I can't control it. It's just a natural instinct inside me. And I'm like, well, I mean, that's kind of something you've been conditioned your whole life to, right? I mean, it's like when you skydive or when you go climb a mountain, you gain a bit of courage, right? You do something you haven't done before and it builds your character as a person. It's the same thing with this. It's not your fault that it's making you feel uncomfortable, but is because all this stuff's been hidden from the public eye for so long. And now people are having fun with it. I was telling you, I'm going to be DJing in March. They're having heated rivalry parties where like you go out and a DJ and it's playing on the screens and they play the songs from the soundtrack and like men and women are going out there and getting the custom jerseys from the show. Like it's a whole thing. We need so much more of this because it's going to make people like my friend feel a little less weird every time, which is what we need, right?
Tracy D says, but that dude, Johnny's buddy, would probably happily watch two women make out, I bet.
Of course. But like,
fair point.
The guy I'm talking about is not someone who has qualms with anyone. Like he goes everywhere. He has friends, all colors, all stripes, but it's just, it was a truth moment for him when he was being really like, he was being really open with me. And I just said like, why?
Yeah.
And it's, that's where some people are still. So we got to bring them into the fold.
Sure. I appreciate this from Sup Snorty in our live chat, kicking into the super chat. Just says 2S LGBTQIA plus rights are human rights. Yeah. And that's a fact. And I just want to thank all the real talkers that have kind of had you've been wearing your heart on your sleeve. I mean, there's really, let's be honest with this audience, that's no different than any other day. You guys speak from the heart and you speak, the majority of you, from a position of empathy. And I think that it's okay as well to have folks in here that are asking questions about it and sharing their own personal perspective, which is different. We welcome that debate, and we hope that over the course of time that you are moved by meaningful conversations on this show, from hearing people's personal perspectives, and that ultimately, you land at a place where your convictions are driven by empathy and understanding and inclusion. And I just want to thank on this show those two, Senator Chris Wells and Jeff McLean, for joining us. I remember when Pride Tape first came out. I remember that it was a really big deal at the time. It was a big deal. It is a big deal that the Edmonton Oilers were the first to rock it. Yeah. And sort of seeing that story through the ages. Let us know what you think. If I know anything about this show and this audience, we're going to hear from people firsthand, just like we're about to get to at this moment here with the Flamethrower. People with whom this conversation landed maybe a little more personally, or maybe with a little more meaning than the average audience member. You can always leave a comment on our YouTube episodes or on Spotify. Leave comments there as well. You can hit us up on our social channels at Real Talk RJ, and you can always send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. Our incredible friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park, number one, are going to be out at Larry Alexiak Field in St. Albert this weekend, bringing the burgers to the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic. But every week here on the show, they pave the way. They set the table for your hottest takes. What you're about to hear are real emails to talk@ryanjesperson.com. It's the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. This one from Glenn, who writes in, says, Jespo, it's Glenn, and I am embarrassed. He says, across the country, premiers are doing the bare minimum required of grown-ups in public office. David Eby calling Alberta separatism what it is. Nonsense. Treason. Doug Ford, same thing. Wob Canoe, loud and clear. Canada is better together. Meantime, here in Alberta, our premier is fiddling while the fringe sets the map on fire. Let me be clear, says Glenn with two N's. This separatist cosplay is unserious, unpatriotic, and frankly humiliating. It's political tomfoolery dressed up as standing up for Alberta, and everybody outside our borders sees it for exactly what it is. Danielle Smith doesn't need to flirt with the loudest cranks on Twitter. She needs to lead. She needs needs to be a patriot. She needs to be loyal to Canada, to say out loud that Alberta's not going anywhere and this talk is a dead end. If premiers from other provinces can defend the country, surely Alberta's premier can too. Or is that too much to ask? That from Glenn with 2 N's. What about this from Tractor Dave, who says, is Jeff Rath's cowboy hat lined with tinfoil? He was sharing posts about someone turning the power off in Winfield, so it made it harder to sign the petition. It's sad how many people are falling for this garbage. Tractor Dave says, thanks for a great show. Ryan and crew. Thank you, Tractor Dave. Keltie writes in and says, guys, I've been a listener since day one and a big fan of your willingness to examine all angles of a subject. Says, I'm writing to respond to your episode on the ADAP debacle. This is Disability Supports for Albertans. Says, I am the co-founder, says Keltie, of Hold My Hand Alberta. We advocate for kids with disabilities. I'm also the mom of a large blended adoptive family. We have the privilege of parenting several young adults who rely on AISH to allow them some semblance of independence. We regularly get calls that they are out of food for the month. And I just really want to impress on you and this audience that there are many AISH recipients in Alberta who are eating one meal a day because that's all they can afford. Rental rates are soaring. Disabled people are actively choosing between a roof over their heads and buying food every month. This is not hyperbole, says Keltie. This is reality. And ADAP, this new program, is only going to result in deepening this struggle. She says not helping our little ones meet their full potential also means most of them are going to continue to depend on programs like AISH. That's a fact. And this ableist government is doing its very best to fail disabled people and the ones who love and care for them at every single angle. We need a full community response here. We need our village to speak out. Keltie says disabled people are begging Alberta to let them stay at the same rate of poverty they're already in. Sit with that for a second. That from Keltie. That's powerful stuff. What about this one from Laura, who says, thank you so much for spotlighting Advocate Avery and Trish Bowman from Inclusion Alberta on the show this week. Their expertise, their policy proposals should be strongly considered by any compassionate governing body. It says, and even if you have a governing body like ours that prioritizes stepping on educators, destroying healthcare, targeting trans youth, and now putting vulnerable Albertans on the chopping block, even if as a conservative you're worried about waste and fraud and abuse of people taking poverty level supports, even if your bottom line is how can we incentivize more people to work, Laura says, I have a solution for you. It's removing the cap on earning for AISH. These are fully exempt income. That's what we're talking about. AISH recipients that could go get a part-time or a full-time job on the side. Says if there is even a small amount of people on AISH who risk losing some or all of their disability funding by working, then remove that disincentive. I guarantee people want to improve their standard of living. They want to participate in society. They want to contribute to the best of their abilities. Stop penalizing them with threats to their funding. And as a bonus, you'll cut red tape on a penny-pinching bureaucracy. Laura says, I can't use language strong enough to decry the actions of putting our friends and family living with disabilities through more hoops and more government morass. It's unconscionable. She says, thanks for the show, Ryan. We know that you're a real ally. That from Laura, damn straight. Les says, of all the shows I missed, it had to be the one about disability, poverty, and our government seeking political power at the expense of people with disabilities. Says, I was asked about this change in 2016. This has been in the planning stage, he says, for like 10 years. Who have they consulted with since then? He says, we'll never see anything like a Redford conservative government again. And before you say good, remember that Danielle Smith was leader of the opposition at the time, and she was relentless in getting Alison Redford booted. And one thing that not one person can ever take away from Alison Redford is that she gave AISH the largest increase since it was created, since its inception. She increased it by $400 a month at the time. That was a 30% increase. And remember this, that shows you who this government is. Now compare Danielle Smith and Alison Redford. There's a gap far worse than trying to build Redford's Sky Palace, the Premier's residence. Les says, I have all the respect in the world for Premier Redford, and this is one of the many stains in the history of Danielle Smith's political history. That from Les. And here's one from the East Coast. This is from Melvin. Melvin says, Jespo, I love the show. I love the discussions, particularly your recent show. This is the 27th of January regarding innovative ideas on how to more smartly use our healthcare dollars. Melvin says you mentioned healthcare issues from Vancouver Island through to the Maritimes. Says, just a reminder, Jespo, the Maritimes do not include the largest Atlantic Canadian province, and the country does not end at Halifax. And Melvin's absolutely correct. So, Melvin, a very specific and special shout out to every single Real Talker joining us from Newfoundland and Labrador, not the Maritimes, and easily one of Canada's most magnificent jurisdictions. Shout out to you today, Melvin, and shout out to everybody who fired up their flamethrower to talk@ryanjesperson.com. You make sure you do the same the next time you've got something you got to get off your chest. And when you rip through a drive-through or pop into a DQ in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, or Baseline Road, you make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent ya. Hey, we want to give a very special shout out to Kyle V, who wrote into the show. It's his birthday today. He's 42, and he's starting the day out right in Costa Rica. A little reading, a cold beer, watching the kids play in the pool, and listening to my favorite show, Real Talk, on the road. Happy birthday, Kyle V. Make it a great weekend, everybody. Hope to see you out at the Real Talk Pond Hockey Classic, and if not, join us Monday, February 2nd, where Cyprien Devetti and Philippe Fournier help us break down what went down at Conservative Convention in Calgary. Talk then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Cyprien Devetti, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.